My name is Sean Rinehart. I've been teaching in North Carolina this is my 5th year now. Originally from Richmond, Michigan. I feel that it's important to send the message that texting while driving is negative, it's dangerous, and I don't feel that enough teenagers around the nation understand how dangerous it can really be until it affects someone that's around them. So I try to tell my own story to make sure kids realize that it can happen to them or someone close to them. On September 15th, 2005, on my 23rd birthday, I was coming back from practice where I was a collegiate track and field athlete, and I was on my way back to my apartment, and this is when texting had just become popular, something that a lot of people at my age were doing, and I was driving down the road. I had noticed the intersection the light had turned yellow, so I picked up my phone to finish a text, and something I wasn't really good at to begin with because it had just come out. And as I looked back up, a truck had pulled into the left-hand turn lane, or pulled into the intersection, and I ended up T-boning that truck. And since I wasn't wearing my seatbelt as well as texting, I was shot forward practically through the windshield. And the last thing I remember is having to jar the door open to get out of my car. And as I opened the door and I looked at the truck, I flipped his truck over and basically flattened the entire top. And the first thought I had was that I had killed someone, that I have to live with that for the rest of my life. And it ended up that a couple people had come back and helped that man out of his truck, and then I had noticed that when I grabbed my head that I was bleeding a lot, and I had a lot of shards of glass in my head. And that night on my birthday, I spent about 5 hours in the emergency room getting CAT scans and x-rays and different tests done, and I spent the next week or so pulling glass out of my head and having to heal, and I was out of practice and out of competing collegiately for about a month after that accident. And had I not had insurance, that probably would have cost me between $12,000 and $15,000. I consider myself extremely lucky that I survived that accident, let alone that I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. The fact that I wasn't paying attention, that I shouldn't have been on my phone in the first place, that was the first mistake I made. Looking back at the accident, it's something that I think about practically every day of my life, because I can't believe that I actually survived it when another person could have had that same accident and ended up going through the windshield and killing themselves. I feel that every day I wake up, I'm very lucky because everything I've done within the past 5 years since my accident has been positive as far as getting the job and getting married and things of that sort. And none of that would have been able to happen had that accident turned out differently. I agree that texting while driving is very similar to being drunk while driving, because just like a drunk driver is not very sure about the road and where they're at, it's the same with someone who's texting, because they're looking down at their phone and having to look at that, and then they could end up in the left lane, they could end up on the shoulder, they could end up in a ditch, wherever. So it's basically the same concept, to where a drunk driver might be able to see where they're going, but they're still impaired to the point where they might end up at a different point in the road and end up killing someone or themselves. So I think it's very, very similar to being drunk while driving as compared to texting while driving. I think I'm trying to do a lot more to help keep teenagers from texting while driving. I recently participated in a state police campaign where they came to our high school and they had students get in these go-karts and had one student driving while texting and another student about 50 feet away texting that same student, and they had to show that they could maneuver around cones while texting and actually reading and comprehending and sending something logical back. And 99 to 100% of the students could not do that effectively, and they kept running into cones, running out of the course. And I also did an article in the local newspaper after that about my own accident, because I think that teenagers don't see it as dangerous until it affects someone that they know or someone in their family or even themselves. So you could explain them, tell them a story of what could happen. You could say, what if this or what if that, but until they actually see how it affects someone they know, they're not going to really see it as a danger or a threat to them. So I try to tell my classes the story and explain it to them, and that if that had ended up any differently, I might not be here today. So it's something they should really think about every day. I think one of the most popular myths about texting while driving is that it's just a teenager thing, that it's only 16 to maybe 20, 21-year-old people who are doing it. That's not true at all. I mean, I know adults who I've worked with in the past who text every day while they're driving and don't see it as a problem. And it's the same situation as a teenager. It's just as dangerous just because you're 10, 15, 20 years older than any of the students you might be teaching, or your kids, or whoever else you might be related to or know. It's still the same danger level as you would for anybody else. And I know that if I had a son who was 16, 17 driving down the road, that I know I wouldn't be texting while I was driving because I wouldn't want to end up killing him or myself in that same situation. So I think that's not just a teenager problem. I think that it's an everyone problem that we need to be focusing on and try to change. I'm Sean Rinehart, and I want everyone to live now, text later.